Welcome here to a very special Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora broadcast from inside of the Great Lakes Honda City studios. Great Lakes Honda City coming to you on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. They are your home for your next new and or used vehicle. You will find the Honda Pilot, the Ridgeline, the Passport, the Civic, the Accord, the HRV, my favorite, the CRV, right there on site on location, and you could find out more by going to greatlakeshondacity.com. Here in this Bearcat Breakroom in our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership with the Binghamton University Bearcats, I'm back here with Binghamton Bearcats men's tennis head coach. And you know, we've gotten to talk, and whenever we talk, good things happen. So I feel like we should talk more often because that good energy just flows back and forth between Nick Zieziula and myself. So we're not talking to the one-time NEC champs. They've been in the NEC for 2 years, and they've been champions both times. Going into the NEC tournament, winning it last season, going into the NEC tournament, winning it this season. So 100% of the time that men's tennis is in the NEC, they win titles. So with that being said, Mr. Zieziula, how are we doing?
Excellent. Thanks, Dan, for having me on. Always great to chat with you, and definitely great to be chatting with you again after a championship.
Yeah, and the first time you and I talked, I was down in my second home, the great state of Florida. And I remember where I was sitting and broadcasting and talking with you about that. Going back to that moment to this moment, how sweet has it been? I mean, you and I were talking about what you're doing with the program, what your ideas are, your thoughts are. We spent like an hour just kind of breaking down everything on your mind. And now we're sitting here talking about two-time champions. So going back to that conversation, what do you remember? What do you recall? Because you're obviously doing a heck of a job with you and your staff and your student athletes.
Yeah, it was fun chatting last year after the championship, but each year is its own journey, and its own twists and turns, and has its own story to tell. Even in a year where we returned 8 of our 9 guys and all of our starters from last year were back. But last year I told the guys the quote that the same man can't step into the same river twice. And I started telling them that even last year, that things are going to change. You're going to have different classes. You're going to have different pressures inside the court, outside the court. There's going to be different expectations on yourself and from other people. And tennis is a game where, we all in life want our development to be in a straight line going up. But we forget that development is messy, and learning is messy in anything. And we take 2 steps forward and we take 3 steps back and take a couple forward and fall backwards, and it's all over the place. And so I think the guys did a good job of dealing with that this year and not getting themselves too down or too frustrated when some of the results didn't go the way that we would have thought they would have, given the experience of the roster and what we had accomplished last year. There were some matches early on in the year that got away from us that none of us would have predicted would have gone that way.
Yeah.
And while the guys were frustrated with that, they just channeled that into working hard and being ready at the end of the year.
Yeah, when we look at last year to this year, and we will talk about this at length, but I want to go back to something that you said, because and I know there's no notebooks in this studio. I don't write down and say, this is what I'm asking Nick, and that's it. Like, I listen to what you have to say, and that's how I've been for years in my broadcasting world. You said the same man can't step in the same river twice. I want to break that down a little bit deeper and get your thoughts on what that means to you and why you use that analogy.
Yeah, I think we're always developing and growing as individuals, and you can face similar situations, but the context of the challenges that you face are always different as well. We played St. Francis, and I was asked this down at after the match about what we brought forward from last year. We played St. Francis in the finals last year. We played them in the opening round this year. The 2 different teams, the conditions are different. It wasn't as windy this year as it was last year. Who's riding momentum, all those contexts of the challenges were different, even though a lot of the same faces were there. and a lot of the same, the same shirts were there.
Yeah.
But just the context of where everybody is at in life. And so it was something that I had started to stress to the guys last year of enjoying the opportunity when we were headed down to Columbia for the first round of the NCAA tournament, and saying, you can't take anything for granted that, well, just because we have the same guys coming back, that we're going to get the same results and everything's going to be the same. You never know who's going to get injured, things that are going to happen outside of the court that have nothing to do with tennis or injuries. And so I was glad that we started that last year, and then was something that we brought back and reflected on this year. And I think that also helped to take pressure off of the guys that, yeah, just because you're the same starting lineup doesn't mean that you're starting matches up a break or up 1-0 or anything like that. That doesn't impact the scoreboard. You got to go back to work each day and start all over again.
Yeah, and you said something that was extremely insightful. You said, just because the team is back, just because, my starters are my starters, you're going to be taking different classes. You're going to have different things affecting you, right? Somebody could be going to a match, and last year they were dating somebody and it was all good. This year, in the middle of the season, they break up the day before a match. So, you're talking about things that make that people don't talk about. There could be breakups, there could be deaths in the family, there could be a class that's really getting on this student athlete. This could be just a time period in their life where they feel a little bit confused. Maybe they're not sleeping as much, and maybe they're not eating right. Maybe they got sick right before the season, and it's kind of like had ripple effects of catching up type of things. That's such a big thing for you to say to them, and it's such an important thing to say that, last April and this April, your life is not the same. Something's going to happen that's going to challenge you that might have nothing to do with tennis. How have you seen your student athletes respond to that? I know you guys won an NEC title, but in general, going throughout this season, currently at 13-11, how have you seen them respond to the fact that life is life and they're going to go through things that they didn't go through last year?
Yeah, I think one of the things I was most proud of is that at the just before the tournament, we were down in New Jersey, and our captain, one of our captains, Will Benny, said to the team, it's great that we're going in as the 4 seed. There's no expectations on us. There's no pressure on us. We just got to go out and take care of our fundamentals and do the things that we know we need to do to play good tennis. And I hadn't said that. I hadn't put that in his ear, aside from kind of our general messaging that we've been putting into the guys. But he articulated that, right before the tournament. And, so that to me said a lot about what the team was absorbing and how the team was processing what we were throwing at them, that they had internalized that, hey, at the end of the day, whatever happened yesterday or last month or last year is done. Today we got this in front of us, and this is our challenge. This is our task, and we're gonna go about it, trying to take it down using our principles, on and off court of how we want to play, how we want to be in the world, and be as a team. And so when that was coming from the team, I felt really good about where we were at, going into the tournament.
Yeah, when we look at the tournament last year, to go back to that first NEC title here with Nick Zieziula in this edition of the Bearcat Breakroom, in our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership with Binghamton University, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. Last year, you had in the quarters, you had Stonehill, you won 4-0, and that was the 8 seed. Then you had Lemoyne, the 5 seed, you beat 4-1, and then you had St. Francis that you defeated 4-1 in the championship, who was the 3 seed, to win it all in West Windsor, New Jersey, in your first season in the NEC, and at that time, a record of 16-9. What is it about last season? Because I know last season's this last season and this season's this season, but what did you take with you from last season and utilize? Because you were champions last year. It was not the expectation that you were going to be champions last year. And you went into the NCAA tournament after getting your bid from the NEC and faced off against Michigan. What do you take from that season and going through the NEC? And like you said, you're returning all these guys who knew what it took to go from round to round and systematically find a way to win. So they had done it before. It doesn't mean they're going to do it again, but the experience had to have meant something from last year.
Yeah, I think the the tricky part for us is that the expectation, regardless from anybody else, was internally that we would win the tournament and that we would be on the top both last year and this year. And that's something that I use as a positive with the guys that look from Gene, from our administration, from the school. The expectation is that they've put us in a position to win. We need to go out and execute and do those things.
Yeah.
And in some ways, when that expectation is clear, then it's very nice and easy to just forget about it and just say, okay, the outcome, we know where we need to get as the outcome. And so the only thing that really matters to focus on is what we need to do day in and day out. I think specifically from last year's tournament and with returning a lot of the guys, one of the things that was helpful to bring forward was that belief. We did not play good doubles last year in the tournament. It was a very different tournament. We played Stonehill. They had already played a match that day. They had to beat Wagner early in the morning, and then we played them late at night on the same day.
Yeah.
So that's a huge disadvantage for Stonehill to come into that match a couple hours into being on court already. So we won the doubles point in that match, but then lost the doubles point to Lemoyne in the semis and lost the doubles point in the finals to St. Francis. And so going through that at the tournament and realizing that we want to be focused, we want to try to take the doubles point, but ultimately if we lose that, it's 1 point. We just need to keep moving forward, use that 5 minutes in between to get ourselves ready for the next. And so that experience definitely came through this year. We did not play great doubles. Again, this year we were very tight and sloppy against St. Francis, and St. Francis, to their credit, played very well and took advantage of the opportunities and the openings that we gave them. But you could see in the body language, the guys' facial expressions at the end of that doubles point that it was just like, okay, next. Coach Ellis is fond of saying that, just next, what's next? And you're always looking forward instead of looking behind you. We played better doubles in the semifinals against FDU, but came up short in the tiebreaker to not take that one. And I think that was a good step in the right direction for us. Then on against LIU, we were able to play, not excellent doubles because we were sloppy at 3, but at 1 and 2 they did a great job of taking care of business.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, learning things from last year and then putting them into this season. When you got to this season and you were right ahead of the NEC tournament, this season featured a 3-match winning streak at Marist, at St. Bonnie's, and at Mercyhurst, and then a 3-match losing streak at Bucknell and then FDU and LIU at home before defeating Lemoyne. Bring me into that Lemoyne match on April 11th and what that did for the team to stop the skid right before the tournament.
Yeah, I think the thing that we try to, and I sometimes struggle with this, but we try to do with the guys is to not get into connecting the matches too much.
Yeah.
This too shall pass. You win a couple matches in a row, that's great, but the next match you go out, it still starts at 0-0. There's no bonus points. There's no home court advantage. The match in front of you is the match in front of you, and that's it. And the great part about that is that works too when you're losing. Okay, we lost last week. Personnel was shifted, doubles teams were shifted, whatever. That doesn't matter. What's behind us is behind us. What's in front of us is the match that we have at hand. So I think the guys did a good job with that this semester and not getting too caught up in, riding. We had some good matches early in the year. We had some poor matches along the way, but especially at the end of the semester, I think they were taking each match as it came. And we knew that, like FDU ultimately came down to a tiebreaker on 5. We played for several hours, and that's a couple swings of the racket one way or the other. But we talked about that as well, that a couple swings of the racket the other way for FDU, and we could have lost that match 6-1. Will was down in his third set. Andre was down in his third set. Kyle was down big in his third set. We ended up getting 2 of the 3 of those, but not inconceivable that we could have lost all those and really gotten kind of blown out in our own building. So we tried to cut that both ways in terms of, hey, we won a match, we lost a match. Who's next? Have we done our scouting reports? Have we watched our video? Are we set with our game plans and ready to go? And if we can answer yes to all that, great. We'll be as ready as we can be. And if we can't answer yes to all those, then we got to get to work on those items.
Well, and as you work through the season, like you said, it wasn't really what you anticipated, and it wasn't necessarily starting out the way that you had thought. And I know you had faced when it comes to out of conference the likes of St. John's, Colgate, BYU, Bucknell, Army, Princeton. You know, looking at the schedule, St. Bonnie's, there was a lot on this schedule that had to be exciting to go up against and also challenging. And like you said, you know, we put ourselves in a place to be successful. Gene Marshall puts us in a place to be successful as our athletic director. Whatever people think on the outside, our expectation is to win. What did you learn from the non-conference schedule that you had that you feel can not only help you throughout the season, but can help you now as you get set for the NCAAs?
Yeah, I think that the biggest one for us is we had the opportunity to play BYU at home. And at the time, BYU was not ranked. Now, final scoreboard was 6-1, but we lost in 3 sets at line 1. We won in straight sets at line 2. Andre, I think, was at 3 that match, lost 4-4. We had Johnny step in off the bench, go 3 sets at 6. And Kyle went 3 sets at 4 or 5, wherever he was on that day. I think he was at 4. So a couple weeks later, BYU, with basically the same lineup, goes and beats number 11 UCF. So we were talking about that today, that, like, guys, no idea who we're going to play yet. We're likely going to draw a top 16 team, although the way the draw went last year, we ended up not having to play a host school and not playing a top 16 team. So you don't really know for sure.
Yeah.
But we'll play somebody in the top 32 nationally. But that's the level that we played, and we were toe-to-toe with them. So we've been trying to lean into that. We leaned into that all year, that, like, when we really show up and we play and execute the way that we can execute and bring the type of energy and volume to the match that we can, we're going to put ourselves in positions to win against and take points against very good teams, no matter how highly ranked they are. So we're excited about that. We played, you know, a similar St. John's, probably be a 3 seed at their site, and, you know, scoreboard wise wasn't great, but I mean, doubles, and I think Roney lost in the tiebreak. I mean, we were right there on a lot of courts against some very good tennis this year. So I think we had a lot, as much as our overall win-loss record was a little bit disappointing. I think we gave ourselves a lot of examples to look at and say, hey, we can hold our own against some really good teams, and we got a lot to believe in.
Yeah, and you definitely have held your own this season. I do want to make a note of this before we jump into rapid fire with Nick Zieziula. There's been multiple student athletes that have been here on Wake Up Call inside of the Bearcat Breakroom in our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership with Binghamton University. Andrew, Ronan, as well as William have all been on the broadcast. What can you say to this group that you have, to these student athletes? I've gotten to know them. I've gotten to know their personalities. I love the fact that I'm looking at this roster and there's multiple people that I was able to cheer on and hope the best for last year, and now, you know, to see them have success again this year. But what is it like to have this group? And if you would, if there's something to say about William, Ronan, and Andrew and how they've exemplified what you want this team to be, because, like I said, I've been able to spend some time with them, but I'd love to get your angle.
Yeah, this was a great year in terms of the team really had to take ownership of a lot of stuff. I was out. We had our baby boy Francis born in January, so I was away from the team for a while, and I owe a lot to Coach Charlie Ellis for getting the year started in January on the right foot and being sure that the guys were on top of things. But there were a couple other things that came up during the semester, and Coach Ellis was away from the team for a little bit, and internally the team really had to step up, and our captains and Will and Kyle did a great job of staying on top of the guys and being sure that it wasn't just coming from me or the coaching staff about doing a little extra and watching the film and doing their match evals and getting things set. So we had good scouting reports and we were ready for our matches later in the season. Andrew, and we talked about after the match, and Andrew was one of the guys, but James and Jonathan as well. We had a lot of rotating lineup situations at the back, and we had some situations where it wasn't immediately obvious as to who should be in. If you looked at the stats, you could parse it one way. If you looked at a couple other stats, you could parse it another way. And the team really played with no ego. Our grad assistant last year, Luke Carney, said ego is the enemy of gratitude. And we kept coming back to that this year, and that those guys were really able to put themselves aside. I mean, last year James was our fourth point in the finals for the championship, and he didn't play in the singles lineup this year. And that's a hard thing for any student athlete to do, especially in tennis where you grow up and it's an individual sport and it's just individual. And man, on the first day he was called the coach, and he filled that role and did a great job coaching. On the second day and the third day, it was just being volume on the sideline, playing his doubles, and then being loud during the singles. And he did a great job being on top of that. His doubles play was huge. The doubles point in the finals, we needed that. But there's so many little examples like that. The same with Andrew. Just sometimes he was in the lineup, sometimes he was out. But if he was on the sidelines, he was the loudest guy in the building. And you could hear him back on campus from up on top of the hill at Lane Stark. And the guys really bought into playing for each other and taking care of stuff and not waiting for me or for Coach Ellis to say, hey, here's what you need to be doing. But they took the initiative within themselves. So it's been a real pleasure to coach this group. We're going to miss Zubin and Kyle when they graduate, but we're going to enjoy this last couple weeks together, however far we go.
Yeah, last year you had the opportunity to face off against Michigan. This year we will see at the beginning of May, but to get to the NCAAs, you went through the NEC Championship, this time going up against number 5 St. Francis, winning 4-3, then number 1 in the tournament, FDU, defeating them 4-1, and in the championship, number 3 LIU, defeating them 4-2 back at West Windsor, New Jersey. Your takeaways from the Mercer County Tennis Center this season and this story that will continue in the NCAA?
Yeah, I'm proud of the guys. FDU had a great team this year. In particular, they're well coached, and they went up on a tough road trip and they won at Lemoyne late night Friday, which is a tough place to play and win. And then on the heels of that, finishing sometime after midnight, came down and beat us the next day. So they were doing some great things. St. Francis was a tough one with their move to D3. I think a lot of those guys were, kind of in their last hurrah, fighting for their final opportunities at the D1 level. And LIU, Coach Chad has done a really good job down there. He's battled a lot of stuff on court and off court, and so he really brings that passion into his guys. So some tough matches for the guys, but they came prepared and happy to be going on to the NCAA tournament. And we're going to see, we got a lot of experience back from last year against Michigan. I thought we did excellent in the doubles. I think we felt like we were in a position where we could have won that doubles point. We had 4-2 and points for a 5-2 lead at number 1 against number 18 team in the country. One service break difference at 3. I don't think any of us were happy with our singles performance last year. I thought we fought hard, but execution was not there, and Michigan kind of rolled us in the singles. But with a lot of those same guys coming back and that experience in the back of the head of being able to feel comfortable on that stage, I'm excited to see what we can do and battle and put ourselves in a good position.
I can't believe it's been a year, but an incredible year it's been to be right back in the NCAAs, and I'm very happy for you, Nick, for your staff, and for all these student athletes, for Gene Marshall and Binghamton as a whole. Jumping into rapid fire, you get to ask me the first question. Fire when ready.
How was your Easter weekend?
It was good. It was really good. To me, Nick, it's not about me. It's about God, and it's about God every day. And so when it is about me, I have to check myself and remember, because I kind of, I'm not gonna say I went into this Easter feeling great. There's been a lot of stuff that's kind of weighed on my soul, weighed on my heart, weighed on my mind, and I've been letting it get me down. I letting it kind of suffocate me. And my mom and my dad were like, "You're so much better than that. Like you've learned." And so Easter was about looking at Jesus and saying, "You rose from the dead. You did the impossible. You're always been there for me. You've always found ways to show me I matter. You, in a sea full of billions of people, you always do things that make me feel like it's just for me. So today, can I put down the fact that I'm a little upset, I'm a little disappointed, and I'm a little hurt? And can I focus on the fact that it's not about me?" And so I think, Easter has been a reflection for me to get myself right, get my mind right, get myself in check, and to remember, if God is for me, what does it matter who's against me? So I think I,
Amen.
I really needed to hit that reset button, kind of hit that gong, and remember that though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I will fear no evil because thou art with me. So I'm going to throw it back to you in a faith sense and say, what is it about your faith that has challenged you the most, but also been most rewarding?
I think that's ultimately where a lot of my emphasis with the team on gratitude has come from in my faith and that sense of everything is a blessing. It's just how you look at it, and if you can take your selfishness and I want something to go this way, I prefer that this to happen. If you can take that away and just focus on the opportunity that something presents, even though it might not be the thing that you would have chosen. And it's been a great blessing to really focus on that and meditate on that and think about that. But it's also been a challenge that when things aren't going the way that you want them to be able to say, okay, what's the opportunity? What's the blessing here that I'm getting without maybe thinking about it or understanding it right now.
Yeah. I would agree wholeheartedly. One of my prayers I say to God, Nick, all the time, and I have to stick to it, is guide me toward where you want me, guard me from where you don't, and your will over my want. Because if it's in your will, nothing can stop it. If it's not in your will, everything will stop it. And it's that reality of sometimes I want something to happen, but when something doesn't happen and every excuse in the book is made for it to not happen, that's my answer. Because if something's going to happen and it's meant to happen, then nothing will stop it from happening. People go after what they want, people do what they want, and right, wrong, or indifferent, if somebody cares about something, they're going to go after it. And if they don't, they won't. And it's been one of the most difficult things in life, be it in business, friendship, romance, any of that, to realize that if you stand still, that which is for you will run toward you. That which is not will run away. And it's not your job to chase it. I think that's one of the hardest things to learn in life is it's Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. Stand where you are, and if it comes towards you, it's from me. If it runs away from you, it's not. And, I think in my life, I chased down a lot of friendships. I chased down a lot of things that were dead ends. And reflecting on it, I kind of asked myself, like, would I accept my children chasing down that behavior? And if that answer is no, then why did I chase it? So I think in life, it's just the reality of knowing that God will tell you where to go. And it's not that he doesn't tell you, it's that we don't always like the answer. Because we'll go, God, tell us. And then he'll keep telling you, and you'll go, yeah, but tell me. And he's like, I'm telling you, you just don't want to hear it. And I think that I've had to learn the very tough lesson of when God puts the gavel down, the case is over. There's no hung jury. There's no let's try it again. The case is done. And he's always got my best interest in mind. And I have to trust that. So that's been a big learning thing, Nick.
Yep.
What's your last question for me?
Revisit last year, Rochester against Syracuse, right? We got opening round AHL playoffs. Who's your pick?
I mean, Syracuse is my hometown. And I want the best for them always. Rochester, I got to be a part of the Amazing Spider-Man 2 that filmed there. So Rochester will always have a warm place in my heart. But I'm a Syracuse man. So I got to lean where I lean. And that's where I'm at, man. I mean, my hometown, my city's got me. And upstate New York, not just my city, but, you know, I feel the love in Binghamton. I feel the love in all different parts of New York. And so I'm going to root for Syracuse and Rochester always. But if it's anybody against my hometown, that's hard. However, when Lavelle Sanders, if he goes up against Syracuse, or if I see Mary Grimes go up against Syracuse, well, you know. so you know. But yeah, I mean, in this situation in hockey, let's go Cuse. My final question for you: if you took over my show for a day, what 3 people would you interview? And what would be the one question that you asked me before you took it over? So what's the question that if you could only ask me one question before you sat in my chair, what would that question be? And then what 3 people would be on the show?
I think my key is opening is just business. I got to know where's the revenue coming from, so I know how not to screw it up and keep the show rolling. And my 3 guests, I'm going. We're trying to hunt down Andre Agassi, one of my all-time favorites. Watching as a kid, I'm probably I'm just going with what I'm interested in. So I'm going probably Roditi from TCU, head men's tennis coach, who's done a phenomenal job out there in so many different ways that he promotes the program and winning a national championship last year. And then, you know what? I'm going hockey. I want to get Terry Pagula on, and I want to grill him about what the Sabres are doing with the GM position and see if we can figure out ending the playoff drought.
Okay. I like it. I respect it. Some tennis, some hockey, and I'm guessing the Sabres are your team?
Yeah.
So, all right, fair enough. With that being said, I want to thank you, Nick. It's always hard to say goodbye. I don't say goodbye. I always say see you. For those that know me, I never say goodbye because goodbye is finite. But for Nick Zieziula, I cannot thank you enough, Nick. I always love talking to you. It's just fun. You got a good spirit around you and you got good energy. I hope people tell you that because I sense it. But, you're easy to root for and you're just really kind and you're very giving of your time. So I want to say thank you for that first and foremost. I want to congratulate you and the team on being back-to-back NEC champions. I'm not surprised because I know Binghamton's emphasis on greatness and emphasis on pushing yourselves beyond what other people may say, that you know inside of you that you can accomplish anything. So I think in the classroom and on the courts and so on and so forth, Binghamton is something special. So I respect it. I appreciate it. But beyond everything, I just want to say thank you for honestly treating me like a friend from the first time we talked when I was down in Florida. And not everybody can be genuine like that and open like that, but you are. And I want to say thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Really appreciate what you do for Binghamton Athletics. Love connecting with you and talking with you, and look forward to doing it sooner rather than later again.
And that once again coming from the head coach of the Binghamton Bearcats men's tennis program, Nick Zieziula. They have now been in the Northeast Conference, the NEC, for 2 seasons. And in both seasons, they have gone into the NEC tournament and won the entire thing. 2 seasons, 2-time champions. Not bad 100% of the time, getting some hardware, and they will head on to the NCAAs, and God bless them for it. YouTube.com and Facebook.com. Both /WakeUpCallDT is where you find us Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time around the world with video and audio. And then our internet streaming radio is on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. That is also the home of over 1,900 episodes. So you can check out Wake Up Call live as well as our entire archive on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. Or you can go to the Podbean app and search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Of course, there's many places you can search us, not just on Podbean. Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. Many thanks to the Brooklyn Pickle from New York to North Carolina. You will find Brooklyn Pickle down the road from Pinehurst Golf Course, which the PGA Tour knows all too well. On 1788 Old Morganton Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina, you will find the Brooklyn Pickle. Let them know that Wake Up Call sent you, DT sent you. Either one of those works when you go in there and get the Brooklyn Pickle sandwich, that BP, or the turkey, or any one of their amazing sandwiches, soups, salads. Brooklyn Pickle, Southern Pines, North Carolina. Go see them in the First and Flight State today. And many thanks to our team of partners in Central and Upstate New York, Great Lakes Honda City, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, GG Cards and Breaks, MON-FRI, the snack capital of the world, Avicoli's, Servomation, Mother's Cupboard, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Pizza Man, Brian's Landing. Folks, go and see them today. And many thanks to the Lemoyne College Dolphins, the Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse, and the Binghamton University Bearcats that were featured here today for all being exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You can find your Dolphins by going to LeMoyneDolphins.com, your Bobcats by going to Syracuse.bscbobcats.com, and your Bearcats by going to BinghamtonBearcats.com. And of course, they're all on youtube.com /WakeUpCallDT for this video and more. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, find our Lemoyne playlist, our BSC Syracuse playlist, and our Binghamton playlist. For now, from the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, I say God bless, no stress. Do your best. Have a beautiful day and stay safe.